The summer before my senior year of high school, I went on a young women's retreat, a weekend where I got to fully experience God, a life-changing weekend where our love story began. One evening in the sanctuary, they asked us to write down one specific prayer that was on our hearts on a tiny piece of paper. I wrote, "I pray for my future husband." I folded the note up, stuck it randomly in my Bible, and prayed with all my heart for God to fulfill this hope of mine someday.
While Jackie was at her women's retreat, I was back home living with my parents. I had graduated from Bowling Green State University just 2 months prior, and I was working my summer job, cutting grass. My summer job lasted until December. Then I was job hunting and looking for what was next. A few months later, I got a job up near Bowling Green, so I moved back up there. Jackie started her freshman year at BGSU soon after, and we met at church on campus and ended up playing basketball together each Monday night. I thought she was so sweet and nice, but we didn't talk much at first.
I had the biggest crush on Micah. I looked forward to seeing him at basketball and at any church events, but he was so much older, and I was shy and hardly ever talked to him. Then one night after Bible study, I was reviewing and flipping through my Bible. I was surprised when I found the tiny little note I had written a year ago about my future husband, and I looked down to see what book it had ended up in. Micah. It was stuck in the book of Micah. My roommate and I called my mom, and we all agreed I better gain some confidence and start talking to him ASAP.
At basketball one night, I got the chance to go over and sit and talk with Jackie. We talked about our families and childhoods. We seemed to have very similar stories. We had a good connection in the few short minutes we got to talk on the sidelines, but it made a lasting impression on me. I couldn't help but think maybe Jackie was going to be a big part of my life.
Returning from winter break, going into spring semester of freshman year, I received 2 tickets to the Final Four basketball championship in New Orleans from some family friends. I had always dreamed about going to the Final Four, and I was not about to skip out on this opportunity. I asked all my closest friends, and no one could go. Nobody. Thankfully, that night we had basketball, and I knew someone there would want to go. So that night, I asked everyone. No one could go. At this point, I was devastated. Then I heard someone behind me say with excitement, "You have tickets to the Final Four? I'll go. I've always dreamed of going." I turned around and realized it was the guy I wanted to go with me all along, but was too afraid to ask. It was Micah.
After talking with Jackie's parents, we came to the agreement that her mom was going to ride down with us to New Orleans since we had never met, and the rest of her family was leaving from New Orleans to go on a cruise the day after the games. God planned the timing out perfectly. The games were an amazing and crazy experience, something we will never forget. I was sad my team lost though, Ohio State. The next morning, Jackie and I started the long 16-hour car ride back to Bowling Green, Ohio. We finally had time to talk and get to know each other. We talked that whole 16 hours.
I ended up telling Micah about the note I found in my Bible about my future husband and how it had been in the book of Micah. Probably not the best thing to tell the guy you like before you're even dating. When we got back to BG, I prayed Micah would ask me on a date despite telling him about the note, and thankfully, 2 weeks later he did. We went to a cute little Italian restaurant in Toledo. We were joking and laughing the whole evening. Things were just so easy with Micah.
A week and a half later was Jackie's birthday. I thought this would be a good day for our first kiss, so that was my little surprise for her. I really wanted to ask her to be my girlfriend on her birthday, but I didn't want to rush it, and her roommate told me not to, so I waited until 5 days after.
Now that we were dating, I went back to look at the note in the Bible and to pray about it. Now that I knew him a little more, Micah had graduated with a degree in mathematics, and his favorite time of the day was 12:34 because the numbers are in numerical order. Looking at the note again, I found that the page I had placed the note in the book of Micah was page 1234. Wow, God. Wow.
2 weeks into our relationship, the semester was over, and Jackie was headed back home to Cincinnati for summer break. I wanted to let her know exactly how I felt, so I said those 3 words, "I love you." Thankfully, she said she loved me too.
After the long summer break away from each other, only seeing each other some weekends, sophomore year finally began. but God had different plans than school for me this semester. Micah, my mom, and I went to New York City, and I casted for some modeling shows for Fashion Week. I ended up booking more than one and decided to take a semester off of school since I would be missing so much class. It was not easy leaving all my friends in BGSU, but I felt God was calling me to do this, so I left and hoped for big things to come.
Even though we had only been together about 4 months, we both knew we wanted to get married. One weekend before Jackie left for New York City Fashion Week, we looked at a few jewelry stores for an engagement ring. Her favorite was the first ring we looked at from a small shop in Bowling Green, and the ring happened to be half off for the next week. So I went back that week and bought the ring. Jackie had no idea, and I kept it a secret for the next 2 months.
Only 6 months into our relationship, on a windy, cloudy October afternoon, Micah took me to a park we frequently visited to read through a book we were going through together. It was called 101 Questions to Ask Before You Get Engaged. That day we only had a few questions left in the whole book, and after each question I was given a gift to unwrap. After answering the last question, Micah stood up and got down on one knee. He joked about how he couldn't afford a ring, so he had made an engagement ring out of twisty ties. After looking at the fake ring and having a few moments of laughter, he said, "Well, since I'm already down here," and took the real engagement ring out of his coat pocket. I couldn't believe it, but I knew God wanted us to get married, so I said yes.
After Jackie's semester off, she decided to transfer to the University of Cincinnati to save money. While she was in school, we started to plan our wedding, but first we needed a wedding date. After much thought and prayer, we felt like God was showing us Romans 8:31. So we thought August 31st would be a good date, it being 8:31. The next day we went to church with my family, and guess what the sermon was about? Romans 8:31. If God is for us, who can be against us? We have our date.
Micah found a job in Cincinnati and moved down mid-semester. It made planning a wedding in 8 months a lot easier. It didn't hurt to have him as a calculus tutor that semester either.
Those few short months passed, and somehow it was already our wedding day. I couldn't believe it. I feel like I always dreamed about getting married, and now the day had come. It was a beautiful Saturday, and everything seemed to be going smoothly. The ceremony and reception were going to be outdoors, with the chairs set and the lights strung. We had no idea what was about to come. An hour before the ceremony was supposed to start, in came the darkest storm clouds we had ever seen.
I had always dreamed of having an outdoor wedding, but this storm showed us no hope for that to happen. So after a few tears and some quick planning, we decided to move the ceremony back an hour and move to our backup location. The wedding party was incredible and moved so fast to get the whole church decorated in such a short time. The ceremony was beautiful, and God's presence was definitely felt, which was our prayer all along. After the ceremony, my good friend ran up to me and said, "Did you realize you just got married in the sanctuary that you wrote the note in your Bible about your future husband?" And she pointed to the bench I had been sitting in when I wrote the note 3 years ago. This changed everything. God had brought me back to where it all began.